for the last movie of today's show, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, which is about, well, we've got Sally, Franklin, and their three friends. They take a trip to Outback, Texas to visit an old family home, and one by one they're tormented and killed by a chainsaw-wielding killer and his cannibalistic family. Everyone kind of knows about this movie, I guess. I mean, whether they have seen it or not, I mean, it's one of those just movies that everyone has to know about by now. At least if they've got some enjoyment from the horror genre, they've come across at least the title of this movie or seen clips of it. And you know, it's a low budget 70s movie that just very raw, gritty. I mean, I grew up in an area that was very much similar to these locations. It really takes me back to where I grew up, and even that alone makes it somewhat enjoyable for me. But because it's so low budget, raw and gritty, it's I can't say that like it feels real, but it just feels not so movie-like, if that makes any sense. Like the scene where Leatherface is chasing Sally, it just feels like such an unconventional chase scene because they're just literally running after each other for so long through a bunch of trees and bushy areas or whatever. It's just so different to most other movies out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this is a movie that I've obviously seen multiple times. Not nearly as much as I've seen, let's say Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street. But I've seen it a fair amount of times. And it's one of those horror classics that many seem to respect. And I definitely respect the movie. It has a fantastically gritty feel. And I can't think of another movie that feels quite as gritty as this one is. And of course, Leatherface, even though he's not really the main antagonist, he is pretty iconic. And that his opening scene is, it's just fantastic. You're just going around this house and then he just pops out, sort of drags the guy in and slams the door. That's a fantastic introduction to this guy.
Props to the actor that did the flailing on the floor. That's the part that I think really sells that scene. Mwah.
Yeah, it's the whole, I think it's a pretty much a 5-minute sequence, but it's just, and also I want to mention Marilyn Bones, who plays Sally. Toward the end of the movie, like the last, let's say, 15 minutes, once she gets sort of, I guess, trapped and taken back to the house for the dinner party, as it was. I mean, she's pretty much going insane right there. Like, the madness that, she's conveying with her screams and wails is just fantastic. And, like, that whole scene, the dysfunctional family, the grandfather who's somehow alive, even though he looks half a corpse himself. The whole thing's creepy. It's unsettling, and even the Andy when she escapes, and we have that famous scene, with Leatherface trying to catch her but not able to. Like, even if she survives, and she probably does, she's pretty much screwed for life. Like, there's no way you can go through something like that and come out okay.
I feel sorry for that black dude because he just kind of runs off and...
Yeah, I was wondering about that myself. Like, where's he going? Like, he could have just stuck around a little, jumped in the back of the truck with Sally. So, yeah, he probably gets away because, Leatherface, hit his leg, so he might not be in his best chasing mood, so...
They should do, like, a spin-off movie titled that truck driver who ran away from Leatherface, and then it starts with him just running on the highway and then goes from there.
I think the unfortunate thing is if there's a black guy running down a Texas street, he's not going to be running down the Texas street for long, so it might not make for a overly involved movie. So I guess I say all of that just to preface the fact that even though I deeply respect the movie, with as many times as I've seen it, I've never really enjoyed the movie. I think it's iconic in many ways, and I think it's for the budget they had, I think it's a fantastic idea, but it's such a gritty movie, and we have to deal with characters like Franklin. I get it, the guy has issues, but he annoys me so much.
I will say, and I know that over the internet there's a lot of people saying Franklin's so annoying, he's,
I don't blame him.
This and that, and I mean, when I watched this recently, like I've seen the movie a bunch of different times, but when I watched this the most recent time, he wasn't as bad as I remember. Like, yes, he does have a couple moments where he kind of spazzes out and he's a bit childish at times and things like that, but I don't know. I guess he just didn't annoy me as much anymore. Maybe that's just something that wears off over time. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, the whole thing. Well, actually, I want to say the whole hitchhiker scene. I personally, I just hate that scene. I just hate the whole manic personality of, I forget what his character's name is, but I just really hate that character, and I definitely hated him in the second movie.
Well, I mean, talking about the hitchhiker, like, I always compare him now to all these different people who are, like, amateur photographers. Like, everyone thinks they can do photography now, and I always compare them to this guy, like, taking shitty photos, like, it's good.
I feel like he's just an entrepreneur trying to do the best he can.
Maybe if he had a better camera, likewise, Nikons or some shit.
It might also help if he was, insane, but I think we can. Well, I'll just say that I think he's probably one of the most unbearable members of the family. I really like the, I guess, quote unquote, most normal guy. He's a lot of fun. He's charming in his own way. As far as some guy kidnapping a woman to consume his charming, but at least you can tell that he can get by in the world by acting okay, which obviously could have saved with the Leatherface or the hitchhiker guy. I'm always intrigued because I was born in the 90s. Whenever I watch a movie from the maybe 70s or early 80s, just seeing the way that gas stations and stores looked back then, it just always blows my mind because it just seems so, I guess for lack of a better word, so archaic. It just you can definitely tell the age of this movie when watching it, and I think it's that's much to its benefit. Because I know anytime. I mean, what's the last Gore Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie? Maybe the remake.
Texas Chainsaw 3D.
See, I didn't care for that one, but hey, to each their own.
I'm sure at some point, maybe 3 years from now, we'll discuss that movie, but it does have some things going for it. It does have a certain actress with very nice boobies.
If that's all it takes for you.
Oh yeah.
But hey, I'm okay with that. I think we can agree though, even if Texas Chainsaw 3D is like an unsung masterpiece, the series of it was a bit of a jumbled mess.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little all over the place.
Which, I mean, you can say the same thing for Halloween, but at least Halloween had a little more consistency.
Busta Rhymes, yeah.
Well, I'm not, okay. Every series has its problems.
Yeah, well, look, back to this movie. I do like the way the movie opens. I like the little, speech at the end where they kind of introduce the movie, and kind of the first thing we see is that dead body propped up. I really like that opening. There's not too many movies that open with imagery like that. But yes, the acting is pretty eh. I mean, some characters might stand out a little bit more than others, and some are terrible actors. And I guess another thing that helps it make it feel less like a movie is that I don't recall any music being played in this movie. Maybe at one scene there's like a small little bit of like background strings or something. I don't know what it is. And maybe someone hitting on a fucking trash can like a drum or something. I don't know, but outside of that, there's like no music in this movie. So
yeah, I think that's what's one of the most impressive things about Leatherface's opening, because I mean, a lot of modern day movies sort of have some type of loud noise when Leatherface first appears, but he just pops up, grabs the guy, and then slams the door, and that's it. It's like there might be like you said, a little reverberation like afterwards, but a lot of modern movies would not have been, I guess you could say, subtle in that approach. So it just, I really like what this movie's going for, and I have no problem calling it a classic. And I definitely don't think it's Tobe Hooper's best movie, which I know some controversy getting thrown here, but I really do appreciate it. I've seen it so many times and I've just never really enjoyed it. So this is pretty much the same rating I've always given it. So I'm giving it just below average at 6.5, but I will round up to a 7 out of 10, just for the sake of my reputation.
Or whatever little reputation you have left.
I know. After not knowing who Sharon Stone is, that's a wind out the window.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really struggle with my rating for this one because there's so many different ways I could rate it. Look, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I'm certainly not going to go any higher than an 8. There are times where I may even consider a 7, but yeah, it's just, just rewind, listen to everything we've already said about the movie. You don't need me to say anything else. It's a gritty movie. It doesn't have really any music in the movie. It's got some decent imagery at times. Some spastic characters that sometimes ruin parts of the movie, but overall, considering the location, the budget, just everything to do with the movie, I think it's enjoyable in a bunch of different ways. And one thing I forgot to mention, and I mentioned this during when we discussed Slaughterhouse, there's a scene that I talked about that kind of stuck with me a little bit more than anything else in the movie, which was just a scene where that Buddy character was sitting down just kind of looking at a dead animal.
Yeah.
Kind of like a personal reflection scene or something. And that seems to be similar to a scene in this movie where after Leatherface kills a few of these kids, he kind of freaks out, like, because this kid just kind of ran in out of nowhere, I guess, and he killed them, and he's kind of freaking out, wondering where are all these fucking kids coming from? they're just, like, transported into my house all of a sudden. But, like, after he kind of freaks out for a little bit, he kind of sits down and just kind of sits there a little bit, and that in the same way, that scene is probably the most memorable scene for me. Just a scene where he's just sitting down thinking. You're kind of wondering exactly what's going through his head, and something about that stands out more than anything else to me.
I also want to throw in kudos. This movie has what might be, I mean, everybody knows it, but it might be one of my favorite taglines: "The who will survive and what will be left of them." Which I always thought that was... It's simple, but I always thought it was a lot of fun. Even though the movie itself isn't really all that grisly. So, I mean, it's impressive, like, this movie has such a reputation that, many people who may not have seen it, just imagine it being a lot, quote-unquote, worse than it actually was.